Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Each week, we sit down for a chat with someone just like you, someone who had an idea, a passion, a dream, or sometimes just a thought, and planted that seed, watched it grow into something they wanted to share with the world. If you have an idea for a topic or someone that would be a guest for the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, where you can join our Never Too Late Cafe Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. Today, I have a special guest with me, Jaime Vendera. Hi, Jaime.
Hey, I love your voice. I need to hire you for some voiceover work for some of our websites. Sounds great.
So where do you currently live, Jaime?
We currently reside in Franklin Furnace, Ohio. My wife and I have been here since December of '98. And I was born in Columbus, Ohio, but at 3, we moved back to Portsmouth. That's where my family's from. And born and raised around this area, went to PHS High School, graduated way back in 1998. It feels like yesterday. It's crazy. I don't understand how time flies by so quick. So, and I've tried to get out of this area, but it just keeps pulling you back.
I thought you still lived in Columbus. So, well, you've done a lot of different things. So I'm just going to kind of dive right into your story of when you got started. I know that way back you were in a band. Were you a
Correct.
rocker?
You know what? I started out as a popper. I loved Wham and Culture Club, a huge Prince fan. And what happened, I was in high school, junior year, I believe, and there was a local band called Flint, and they were looking for a keyboard player. And so I joined, but I was thinking, oh, we'll get to play Duran Duran and stuff like that. And, I was quickly introduced to Bob Seger and then Guns N' Roses and more AC/DC. And these are bands I'm familiar with, but they just weren't on my cassette lists at way back in the day. So kids, if you're listening to this, yeah, we had these things called cassettes way back when. So we had to make our own playlist by recording individual songs onto a blank cassette.
Yeah, if they broke, you had the pencil, you had to spin it.
Yes, I've done that many times.
Hey, I remember reel to reel. So we used, when it broke, you had to use Scotch tape. So that's even before you. So, um, I know you've done a lot with voice. So you're a voice teacher, coach. How would you describe that?
More of a voice strengthening specialist. A lot of the artists I work with are touring artists or artists assigned to record companies or management companies, and maybe they're having issues with stamina or range or power, and they have to go on tour, or they have to do, an 8-hour session in the recording studio, and they're waking up the next morning with a sore throat. So my forte has always been that spot. Yes, I still work on vocal coaching per se. 3 of my students have gotten signed to record labels just in the last year. And when I'm working with an artist like that, we've probably already went through a vocal strength training. So we've expanded the range and stamina, and then we're really fine tuning the nuances, or what I like to call the colors of your voice. I have one of my coaching partners is a guy named Claude LaRoche. And during COVID, actually, we spent a couple years creating this program called Colors of Your Voice, which really dove into all the tonality, the nuances of a singer, from falsetto to breath to nasal to rasp. And we really learned to healthily pick apart a singer's voice so we understand what they were doing and what made them so unique and memorable. So, but at my heart, it is definitely vocal strength training for sure.
Now, didn't you create a device
Yeah,
that
that's
helps with?
the Dr. Vox. And I was just showing you these where I wrote books, this big cover here,
Mhm.
Rebalance Your Voice. I actually wrote this with a doctor named Dr. Ilter Denizoglu. And what it was is and I'm sure you asked me this question in a minute, but I was in Tokyo, Japan on a TV show. And when I was performing, I was shattering a glass with my voice, and a little shard of that glass had shot back into my throat, and it had pierced my pharyngeal wall, and it got stuck in my throat. And it led to all sorts of vocal issues for me. I have scar tissue. I have neurological damage. My vocal cords are fine, but the neurological damage kind of throws my voice off. It causes a lot of inflammation and so forth. And there's no way I would do surgery. I thought I'm not letting a doctor touch this. This is, what I do for my life. And I was searching online and I found this website called drvox.com, and they were from Turkey. Now they made a little glass device that you would fill with water, and they had a tube coming out of it, and you would just hum on the tube and the water would go, it will bubble, and it literally massaged your vocal cords with sound. Well, I reached out to them and said, I want to order one. You're not shipping to the United States. I got to get one of these. I told them my story, and they responded back, we know who you are. We've seen you on TV. We want to send you one. And they did. And of course, it didn't cure my nerve damage or the scar tissue. But what it done is when I get really hoarse from this, which is 24/7, it's every day, it's in and out, I'll grab that device and I'll use it for 5 minutes or so. And the swelling will start going down. Well, I made the joke. I said, I can't carry this around me because I'll scream and it'll explode because it's made of glass. And we all joked. I said, why don't you make one out of rubber or plastic? Because one you can stick in your pocket, call it Pocket Vokes. And they did. They end up creating one. And you see the one on Facebook or Instagram, I'm sure you're talking about. And that one is like a clear blue. And that is a version that they made for me. And we actually sell it through a website called drvox.us or drvox.us, VOX. And my partner is Brian Burkheiser. He is the lead singer for the band I Prevail. They've been nominated for several Grammys. Their latest record is out. They're touring the world and they're blowing up the charts. But Brian had a surgery before he met me, polyps on his cords. So he was very worried about getting his voice back. And he was on YouTube and searching through all these coaches, and he found me. And they contacted me for Skype lessons, and we hopped on. And I said, Brian, the first thing you need is a Dr. Vox. And he lifted it up into the screen. He's like, you mean this? And I'm like, you little stalker. So he's like, dude, I've studied all your videos on YouTube. I came prepared. And it helped him out. I mean, it strengthened his voice with my training as well. And then he said, we really need to start a company together to promote this. So we did. And that's how it came to be.
So you have a vocal academy?
Yeah, Vendera Vocal Academy.com. This is, years ago, I actually went to Shawnee State University back in the 80s for electromechanical engineering, but my heart was in music. So I quit and I moved to LA with two of my best friends at the time, Matt Hoover and Keith Gilbert. And I studied music at Musicians Institute. I studied voice. So all these years later, I thought, I wish there were a way to create an online school kind of similar to Musicians Institute for singers, where we had a community. They could submit songs. I could help them grow. We had several coaches. So that's how that came about. And it's thriving. We have hundreds of singers in there. Wonderful community. I'm in there every day. People are posting songs where we're going over exercises, having clinics, and we're using the Dr. Vox device. And I actually didn't clarify earlier what it was, but it's just this device that massages your vocal cords with sound. Like I said, it helps you warm up really quick. It's been used to reverse vocal nodules, to reduce inflammation, to prepare you for the stage much quicker than you could do without it. So it is a great tool that singers can use to, to improve their voice. And of course, we do use it a lot in the school.
So you also, did you write a book about it or some?
Okay, I'm telling you, you could call me creative. Somebody the other day said you're a creative genius. No, I think I got ADHD, or I'm just flipping mad because I am a book writing freak. I have literally written or co-written or ghost written, I know at this point, over 60 books. And I started writing in January 2000, for a book called Raise Your Voice. The title just came to me, and it was based on the vocal methodology that I created starting as a coach back in 1996. So it's kind of unorthodox. It's a little different than other coaches, the way that I train, because I think of vocal strength training, of doing like squats and bench presses with your vocal cords. So Raise Your Voice was the book that unveiled that to the world. And, that book has been a bestseller. But right after writing that book, which took me 4 years, I just got the writing bug. And then I wrote the Ultimate Breathing Workout, Unleash Your Creative Mindset, and it just branched out from there until '08 when I have a team. I got great people for my books to produce them. I got like Molly Burnside for covers. I got a guy named Daniel Middleton who does the interior, a great editor named Rich Dalglish who does the editing. And Daniel Middleton said, I'd love to write fiction. And I said, I wouldn't mind either because I got stories in my brain every day. And so we started, besides Vendera Publishing, which is already out, we started a subsidiary called 7-Eleven Press. And it was for these short books that you could read, like watching a movie or watching a TV show. They're really quick reads. And wow, I think at this point I've written over 30 books in fiction, from horror to YA adventure to mafia, to spy adventures, sci-fi. And when we started, we had all these pen names because Daniel's like, nobody's going to believe one or two people can write these books. And the way that Daniel and I worked together, we plotted them out together, and I wrote 90 something% of the books. I just, I dove in, and that's all I did. And Daniel eventually decided to leave. He was just too busy with his other business. A great guy. He still works for me, still does my interior design. So I called my editor, Rich, and I said, well, we're doing some stuff for Vendera Publishing at 7-Eleven. And I said, I know that I wrote all these books. And he said, wait a minute, you're Jamie Lynn Saunders and you're Gordon Massey and you're telling me you're Drusilla Winters? No. That's not possible. I said, yeah. He said, your writing style for every genre is completely different. And when you're writing as Jamie Lynn Saunders, who's like a teenage girl, he said it read like a teenage girl wrote this. And then you had, a guy who was much older, who was into fantasy, and he sounded like he was Terry Brooks or something. And I said, nope, that was all me. But I thought, you know what? I'm not going to hide who I am through a pen name. I'm proud of what I've done, and I want people to know that these are all my books. So.
For justice. So I know that you have done a podcast in the past. So what sort of topic is it? Voice strengthening, exercises? What sort of things are you interviewing people?
With the Sing Better Fast podcast, that is with my partner Ben Valen, who runs Vendera Vocal Academy, and we just wanted a way to offer advice to a lot of singers. Look, he coaches, I coaches, we have the online school, but they're, singing to me and the expression of the voice is something that, everyone should experience. And in this world, there may be somebody in another country or even in the United States who like, I can't afford a voice lesson. I can't even join the school. I'm too young, or I don't make enough money, and my parents can't afford it. I can't afford it. So we decided to put out a podcast to offer tips, inspirational tips. This is, here's your vocal routine. Here's some exercises. Here's the singer's mindset. So it's basically all things voice, whether it's about performing, your mindset, vocal health. And occasionally we do interview other people, other singers come on.
And then you blog. Now,
I do. I'm lazy, but yes.
now part of that is kind of a giving advice as well. I mean, wasn't there something about confidence or stage fright or something? I'm not.
Oh, it's always about that. I might have just shared that. So we have a newsletter for the school, and I write something for it every week. But I've done blogs on jamievendera.com. We're getting ready to start one. My partner, Carissa DeLay, who's one of my authors, and she does the marketing for Vendera Publishing. We're going to do one for that to offer writing tips. But confidence, that's a huge thing for me. You can look at a singer, and here's where I think I stand alone with me and the coaches that I work with. Everyone, like, they're watching The Voice or American Idol, and it's all about how many notes and runs can you hit. And really at the end of the day, it's about the uniqueness of the voice, which is why we created Colors of Your Voice. If we had Steve Perry from Journey and Bob Dylan standing next to each other, which they did, and We Are the World, and they sang a song, if they were on The Voice, let's be honest, they're going to let Steve Perry through. Bob Dylan's going to be like, no, dog, this is not for you.
Right.
And you know what? One of the most amazing vocal storytellers of the past century. Amazing, unique voice. So we want to encourage people to understand it isn't about your vocal range. Now that'll be funny coming from me because everybody knows me from, shattering glass on Mythbusters and hitting soprano C notes, and always pushing, here's how you expand your range through books like Raise Your Voice. But at the end of the day, it's about the tone of your voice, the authenticity of how you're expressing the song, the story of the song. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to give back, so somebody had a place to start. I've also done stuff for like Sweetwater. I've done stuff for iGuitarMag.com where we've done free videos. We put free videos on YouTube, here and there when I have time. I try to post stuff on Instagram just to inspire people so that they can keep singing. And it's not just that, it's creativity. Whether you want to write a song, you want to write a book. If I can do it and there's nothing special about me, and if I can sit here and tell you, I've been on over 60 or 70 television shows around the world. I've written over 60 or 70 books already. If I can do that, anybody can do that. It's just about your drive and your mindset.
Well, those are great words there. So let me go back a little bit. When we were talking about the writing part, when did you start your publishing company? Because you're not only an author, but you also publish other people's works.
Yeah. So back in 2000, I started writing Raise Your Voice, and that was murder. It took me 4 years. Mind you, the first version was 128 pages. My third book on creative mindset was 128 pages also. Took me 3 days to write. I wrote the whole thing in 3 days. So when Raise Your Voice was coming out, I was pitching it to publishing companies. Nobody was interested. This was before Amazon was publishing books, before Kindle, before anyone could really get signed. Luckily, my cover designer, Molly Burnside, she had found Lightning Source Printing, and they're owned by Ingram, which is the biggest distributor in the world for books. And now they created Ingram Spark. So, an indie publisher like I could not get on Lightning Source at this day. That was almost 20 years ago. But when nobody would even give me the light of day to even discuss, publishing my book, I thought, you know what? Forget it. We're going to do it as an ebook. And that's how we started. And it came out in like July of 2004. So it's really, it's a little over 4 years. And I remember Molly had set it up on the website. She built the website for me too. And we set it up for $0 to buy it, just to test it, because we had to test the system. And then I was checking my emails when I got home. I was like, oh my gosh, somebody got the book for free. So we had one sales free, and I was having a panic attack. I'm like, no, I'm going to lose millions of dollars. And no, we fixed it real quick. It was one free thing. And then it was slow. A few people were buying it. My website at the time was called The Voice Connection. So I was interviewing a lot of rock stars, and like Steve Algeri, who was in Journey, who's a good friend of mine now, actually became one of my students. James LaBrie from Dream Theater is another one. And over time, we just updated, and I kept writing books. And by the time I had out my breathing workout, I did a diary for that and Raise Your Voice, and my creative mindset book. It just started building. And then that's when sales started kicking in. And I thought, I could probably do this, and have a decent life from it. So I never looked back, and I planned for it just to be for me. I wasn't going to publish anybody's book. But then one of my vocal coaches, Elizabeth Sabine, who actually coached me through when I was on Mythbusters. Now, she didn't teach me to break the glass. That was my other coach, Jim Gillette, taught me all that, and all the blessings go to him for that. But I couldn't shatter a glass without the power of an amplifier. And so Liz and I had a big, long talk one day, and she's like, you got to get on point with your technique. You know this, you're not paying attention, and you're a coach yourself. As soon as I did, boom, started blowing them up. So maybe a year or two later, we were having a discussion, and she had a book out with Hal Leonard, and they weren't reprinting it, and it sold out. And she said, Jamie, I just don't want my legacy to die. And she had worked with Guns N' Roses and Stryper and 38 Special and Megadeth and all these bands. And I felt really bad. And I said, Liz, and she was in her 80s, and, she wasn't doing amazingly great. And I said, you know what? Let me talk to your partner on that. We'll see if we can get the rights back. I said, I can publish it for you. and you'll get all the money. I'll just help you get it out. I'll put it out through Vendera Publishing. And that cost quite a bit of money, probably 3 to 5 grand to get it back, set up a website, redo the book, and spit it out. And I'm only telling you this now because Liz has passed away, and I never want her to know this. She said, "Oh, I don't have a lot of money. How much did it cost?" I said, "Oh, I used all free resources, Liz. It didn't cost anything because I just wanted to help, And then that's what struck with me is like, you know what? If I feel it in my heart, if an author reaches out to me and there's a connection, then we'll publish. And if you go to Vendera Publishing, we only have about a dozen authors, and we're going to grow. But I'm very picky. I wanted to be somebody who, I feel it in their heart. This is really what they want to do. And probably because, when Kindle blew up, everybody was doing great. I was doing great, and everyone has the right to be an author, but everyone became an author the next day. They were copying Twilight. They were copying 50 Shades of Grey. And I knew this because I was purchasing books. I was like, okay, let me check this out. Plagiarism, horrible book editing, lots of typos. And I'm like, okay, there's no quality control with Amazon anymore. And, they'd have, I don't know, 50 to 100,000 books in Kindle, and then boom, millions. And a lot of it was copycats. And it watered down for a lot of authors, and it cost money unless you got heavily into marketing. So anytime I do bring on an author, I do meet with them. I read some of their book. I vet it through several of my partners to make sure it's something that we want to do, so that I know that they'll be involved and it will be a quality book. And that's how that came about. And I never really wanted to do that. And now I love it.
Well, recently there's so much out there about AI. I've
Yep,
wondered how much that's changing.
it is.
It's
One of my band partners, he's actually a coach. He was my student. His name is Ryan Wall. Now he's a co-coach for me on Vendera Vocal Academy, and he's my songwriting partner in a project we have called Angel Fire East. He's playing with AI, and he says, "Dude, I can use it to rewrite because I want to update my website." He said, "I can build you a website that'll blow your mind from AI." He's played around. He's made a couple poems about me. He's like, "I want to talk about Jaime Vendera, Mythbusters, and Breaking Glass, and high soprano notes, and this and that." And he spit it out. And then the next thing I know, my other partner, Claude LaRoche, is doing the same thing, and are making up all these poems. And I'm laughing. And so, yeah, I mean, somebody could come up with a book idea and run it through AI, and boom, have something of decent quality. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know there's programs to run anything that now to sort of check to see if it's AI. I don't know how those programs work, but um, so let's go back to Mythbusters. How did that happen? I mean, that's a huge program. Did they find you? Did you find them? Did someone work
Okay.
as an agent for you?
It's a cool story because in 1988, there was a band called Nitro, and the singer's name was Jim Gillette, and he had out a vocal method program called Jim Gillette's Vocal Power. And his guitar player is Michael Angelo Badio, probably the fastest guitar player in the world. He can play left-handed, right-handed, over, underhand. He had a 4-net guitar. He played for the Freight Train video. So I was a big fan of his. I'd go to their concerts. I'd ask him questions about his program. He'd give me free lessons. And then we lost touch, of course. And then years later, boom, I had thevoiceconnection.com. I was interviewing singers, and I really wanted to interview Jim Gillette. And I thought, he don't remember me. And we didn't have Facebook at the time. We had MySpace was kind of, taking off. And so I was doing everything I could to get out to him. And I think I contacted Metal Sludge. Stevie Rochelle owns that website. And I left my number and everything. And my wife and I came home, and a phone rang. And caller ID, of course, back then, it didn't show. It was anonymous. But I picked it up, and he's like, "Jaime." And I knew it was Jim, and my jaw hit the floor because I've never been starstruck except for that guy. And my wife looked at me, and she said, "I knew by the look on your face that Jim Gillette was on the other end." So him and I became really close, did the interview. And that was like 04, 05. No, it was earlier than that. That was like 2002. That's before the book was out. Because then in 04, he had messaged me. He says, "Hey, do you want to be on television?" And I was like, "Sure, doing what?" He said, well, shattering glass with your voice like I did, all those years ago in the freight train video. And my heart and gut said no. I was scared to death, but my mouth said absolutely, because I wasn't going to say no to Jim. And so he said, listen, Jamie, I can tell you're nervous. He said, you got me in your back pocket. I'll teach you how to shatter glass. And he did. He did over the phone. Mythbusters sent me a bunch of glasses. I set them up here at the house. I exploded quite a few. Then we flew. That was in October. It was quick. And then in November, I flew to New York, and we were on the show Good Morning America. And I was shattering one with an amplifier. And I had to train 22 opera singers to do the same as me. And the audio scientist, Dr. Roger Schwinke from Meyer Sound, had said, Jamie, do you know how loud you are? I'm like, I don't know. He said, you're like way up there, like close to 120 decibels. I was like, okay, what does that mean? He says, these opera singers that are screaming their brains out. I'm like, yeah. He said, nobody has gotten above 85 decibels. I'm like, oh, that's insane. So after the show, they said, we think you can break one without an amplifier, and it's never been proven. And I said, well, my coach has done it. He's done it without an amp. And they said, yes, that may be, but it's never been on film. And to back up, the reason Jim called me is because Mythbusters knew of Nitro and Jim Gillette, and they tracked him down. And he said, nope, I don't. I'm too busy with my kids, and I don't have time. He says, but I know who can. So he set me up even
Wow,
before he asked.
he
Yes,
passed it on to you.
he
How
passed it.
wonderful.
He passed it on to me, and so we did that show, and they were so impressed. They said, yeah, we want you on the actual Mythbuster show to break them without. So that was November, and I'd email them and crickets. In December, and I email them and crickets. And I've been trying. I couldn't break it. And I was working with a buddy of mine, Paul D. Hart, and he's like, bring him into work. I don't care. We'll be idiots. We'll scream at him at work. And we did it for about a week or two. And I'm driving home, and he's driving with me, and I'm tired of it. I got a migraine, and he's screaming. And Elizabeth, my coach, popped in my mind, and she's like, Jamie, because she got this accent. She's like, you got to bear down. You got to push down. And I thought, I know this. This is how I teach voice. And I bared down like I'm going to the restroom, and boom, I blew that glass up in the truck in my face and scared me. And my partner, Paul's like, are you all right? Like, yeah, we're screaming. I went home and broke 7 or 8 more. Then my stepson, he's like, you need to film this. We didn't have iPhones back then. So I got an old camcorder, and Mythbusters really wasn't reaching back out. I finally filmed this like 15, 20-second clip. I emailed it to them, and I kid you not, within 30 minutes, my phone was ringing, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we're going to schedule you for? Can you get here in February? We'll fly you out in February." It's like, absolutely. So that's how it came to be, and all the other shows were just word of mouth. So somebody saw Mythbusters and expanded.
So you're known as a glass shattering banshee from Mars.
That's just my tagline, because I'm a moron. So I'm like, everyone's like, author, professional speaker, vocal coach for Daisy Duke. And I was like, I'm just a glass shattering banshee from Mars.
Well,
I'd forgotten that was on there.
It grabs your attention for sure. Well, this podcast is called Bloom Where You're Planted, and I ask everyone. Only one person got by without me getting to ask them that. But anyway, so what does that quote mean to you? Bloom where you're planted.
To me, it's about community. It's about really, you want to bloom, you want to be a light in your community. I remember years ago, a church we used to go to in Portsmouth, Calvary Chapel. Joe Brook was the pastor, and I grew up on the east end of Portsmouth. And so I went to Wilson School, and now that whole area down there, Wilson School's gone. Half the houses are condemned, and it's sad. But and I'm not trying to pull religion in this, so it's not why I'm telling you this. But I do remember going down on the East End with him, and we walk around, and we would just talk to people, invite them to church. We pass out Gospels of John. And nobody was really caring. I gotta be honest. And one day we're talking to kids, and he's like, hey, he was on Mythbusters. And I was kind of embarrassed, like, I don't tell them that. And then they got excited, and we could talk to them. And I said, you know what? I ended up writing a little booklet called What's Missing, just to pass out, just to tell everyone. It wasn't so much about trying to get you in a church or anything, but it's like, you know what? This is your community. It doesn't matter what you've done, where you've been. There's always a way back. You don't have to live in negativity. You can come back from anything. And I've seen people do it. And so that's the bad thing with this area. I've seen a lot of negativity and how people look at Portsmouth, Ohio, and it's sad. I have a cousin, Joey Pratt, and at least, Joey's worked downtown, try to do the beautification and just, spread positivity. And I see other people doing it. They do it with the Portsmouth Little Theater. And I love that because as a child, the Portsmouth Museum down there by the Esplanade, that I was in their first theater troupe. So we used to have things like that for kids. And we need to do that. We need to bloom where we're planted. You need to instill positivity. When I told you that I don't publish a lot of authors, it's because it's to me, it's about the inner circle and being connected. But I publish authors around here. I got John Bender. I have Carissa DeLay, who actually just moved to Florida, Catherine Horsley. So, I want to see these people grow and, expand this area, know that you can become whatever you want to become. But remember where your roots started. Don't get the big head. Don't forget where you were. Don't forget to pass it forward, honestly.
Well, that kind of ties right into words of wisdom. So were there be any added words you would want to offer someone that has done or wants to do what you're doing?
Don't let anyone tell you no. I've been told no so many times in my life. My first coach told me I was a bass and I would never sing high, and I'm hitting soprano C's in full voice.
And
I said
shattering glass.
exactly. I had a work construction, and I had a friend tell me I was never going to be anything but a dumb old construction worker. I was stuck just like him. I need to quit writing the book. And here I am 60 books later. I've had people's like, you're never going to make it music. And then I've had the same people call my house and be like, dude, I just saw you on Dr. Oz. I always knew you had it. And I'm humble. I mean, I'm not upset with anyone because I think that's human nature. I think a lot of times you get in an area or maybe you're bogged down and you kind of fall in this pattern. It's just like being online and you see trolls and they're always, they're belittling somebody. And I never let any of that affect me. I remember somebody had commented, they did a review on my book, Raise Your Voice, on Amazon, and they gave it like 2 stars. They said it was horrible, a bunch of garbage. There's a 400-page book. There's only like 30 pages of useful information in there. And I had 5 or 6 students like nail him over it. And one called me. He's like, I hate that guy. I'm like, who cares? It's his review. I'll show you how much I care. I got on there and I said, well, I know this isn't a real review. I know you didn't read it. How do I know? Because I made sure I put 32 pages of good information in that book. And everybody's laughing. And it was a joke to me. It doesn't matter, Don't let anyone tell you no. You're in competition with yourself. That's what the words of wisdom I want to offer. You quit comparing yourself to this writer or that person in that position. You compete with yourself daily to be better each and every day.
Those are incredible words. Wow. So what is next for you? Oh,
Well,
it's a list. It's a list, I know.
ooh, gosh, a lot of filming. I'm working on this. I got so many books to finish. I got many tours I got to do. I can't really say who it is until after it happens. So I'm always doing something. I'm always teaching or writing a book or whatever it may be.
And you're filming, you have lots of videos, educational about voice and voice strengthening and those sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, we have like videos for sale, like the Beyond the Voice series through JamieVendera.com. We have hundreds of videos in Vendera Vocal Academy. I have to produce, in this day and age for social media, and I'm not one at the top because I hate to say this, I don't care about social media. I don't care about having 300,000 followers. I probably get 3 or 4,000 followers. I just never pushed it. I haven't needed to. All the TV shows I've done, word of mouth. It wasn't really me pushing. But since I'm working with Dr. Vox and Colors of Your Voice and Vendera Vocal Academy and a couple of other like Vendera Publishing, everyone's gonna be like, you have to be filming videos. So little tips like, here's 10 steps to write your book faster. Here's a step to keep your voice in shape when it's allergy season. Here's how to use it. I just posted one the other day on the Dr. Vox. I have this young girl, so on my Instagram, and she's using the mask piece. And when she plugs it and sings through it makes a farting sound, and she giggles. But I show her it's important because it shows you that she's using too much breath. And soon as she fixed it and she sang again, her voice was more resonant. It wasn't so forced. And she's like, wow. And I thought this would be a great video to help other people who are like, oh, I wish I had better resonance in my voice, or I feel like I'm straining and pushing my voice. So we put out videos like that. And I love to film. I think you can tell after this interview, I like to talk. So,
And that's fine, because that's what we're here for. I really have enjoyed our time together. So I want to thank your mom for
thanks, Mom.
saying, yes, you've got to talk to Laura. And I've known her for a long time, and your brother. So I really do appreciate the time that we've had together. So this is Laura Womack signing off from the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, sponsored by Never Too Late Cafe. So bye for now, Jaime.
See ya.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.